I want to go into the genetics, but I want to quickly, before we do that, talk about your training, because your training is what it made me go like, hang on a second. And this was back when we were going to talk originally. I spoke to Wright Sager at one point, and we talked before about how you guys train together a bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of like to have a little bit of friendly competition. I've seen with.
Well, I'm always lose. I always lose.
But you like to try.
Yeah, of course.
Because there was a point where I think when I first looked at it, you were pursuing some deadlift goals.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the heaviest you ever did, but what body weight do you typically sit around?
Anywhere from 95 to 98.
Yeah, and you never really go over 100?
I have, yeah. So it's when I'm like, pushing hard and with food and everything like that, and then trying to, grow, I would say. But probably, I think the heaviest I got up to is probably 104, 105, but it was like really uncomfortable. I think I lift the best probably around like 96 or so, 96 to 98, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, the most I saw was like you did a set of 4 with 310.
Yes,
is that right?
So that was probably October last year. Yeah, probably this time last year, actually.
And that was conventional deadlift.
Yeah.
You strapped?
Yeah, straps,
Yeah. But
yeah,
nuts to me is crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if you know a lot of powerlifters, but I mean...
You've seen some crazy lifts, right, surely?
Oh, I've seen some crazy lifts, but for me, I get more impressed sometimes when someone's not really doing it, right? Because it's not like you're not trying, but you're not trying to be a powerlifter specifically either. Yeah. So Jake's another good example. I just spoke to Jake.
Oh, he's super strong. Yeah,
it's a similar example though. It's just like he's a bodybuilder. He's got no real business trying to lift that heavy, but similar to yourself, is willing to train at such high intensities, because you haven't just done that, right? I know you did. Like, that was the heaviest you did from what I remember.
Yeah, so for 4, and then I think it was a month after that I put 340.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for a single, yeah.
And that was just to test it, because you were kind of...
that was with rate, actually, because we weren't actually planning on doing that day. It was meant to be like 300 for like reps or something. And then I guess we just got lazy and now, let's see how he goes, and then just put out 340,
Yeah. Because on the build-up, I saw you doing a lot of reps. Like, you were doing quite a few at like 280 and stuff, right? Were you doing like sets of 7 and 8 and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I got 280 for 8. So I was always, the program, I always do like, say, a couple sets of like 6 to 8 reps, maybe sometimes 4. So that's where I sit majority of the time. And sometimes for ego reasons, just obviously, you understand that you go program and try to do something heavy.
Yeah.
That's when I'll go a little bit heavier, if I feel good on the day. But for the most part, I'll do like 6 to 8 reps. But I don't actually do conventional deadlift that much. I'll typically do like, especially when I'm trying to like bodybuild. I'll usually do like stiff leg deadlift or like over deficit or like pause Romanian deadlift or things like that. That will be where my majority of my training sits, and then every now and then, I want to see where I'm at and lift something, and then for the ego, and then I'll jump in and do conventional. Yeah.
With Romanians, like that kind of, now you sort of see it more, right? It's like pretty much like it's like the bodybuilding way to go, right? You can do conventional deadlifts, people do, but it seems like Romanians like you want hamstrings and an ass and a back.
Yeah.
Romanians seem to be the go-to.
Yeah.
And so what's the heaviest you went with them?
So with good technique, it was 250 for like 6 or 8 or something. I can't remember.
Okay.
Maybe it was 6, yeah.
And so you use straps and a belt?
Straps and a belt, yeah.
Do you have any, this might be a time, I mean, I'm going to be cheeky and kind of get this advice for myself, but people listening are probably thinking the same thing. When I find on RDL, especially when you start to get really heavy, it starts to feel like you're getting folded in half, right?
Yeah.
What would be like, maybe even just 2 of your major cues for like, passing that point of I'm sure you have a number where it gets heavy. Maybe it's 200 kilos or something. For me, it's like between 120 and 140 is where it starts to feel like that. What are cues that you really, I guess, they're in your head, or you would give to a client when it comes to like pushing through those hard sets to try to get through it, even though you might feel like you're just going to collapse?
Yeah. So I would say probably one thing that I see that happens a lot is a lot of people do Romanian kind of like a stiff leg instead of a Romanian. I mean, the way I would differentiate the two is that if I want to have a little bit more hinge, like a glute focus, obviously I'll keep, for Romanian, I'll keep my knees as soft as possible. So I don't purposely lock my knees. I'll push my hips back as much as possible. So if my hips starting here, I want to see my hips push all the way back. That's the distance. That's how much bend I'll use for my knee in order to achieve that range. Whereas for stiff leg, obviously I'll lock my knees out as much as possible without feeling like I'm tearing my hamstrings. That's obviously a lot less use of like glutes and a lot more obviously just because the angle changes, right? So I would say what I see majority of people start folding and stuff is because they do the Romanian, but it's almost like they're doing a stiff leg. So they're not actually using the hips and pushing their glutes back.
Yeah.
So you end up feeling more tension on your lower back.
Keeping the hips too high.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
But then obviously that's also depending on your structure, right? Your femur in relation to your torso, how the degree that you bend and things like that, your tibia and things like that. So so how much you bend, obviously that's depending on you as a genetically unique individual. But I'll say, yeah, definitely don't try to lock the knees out, keep the knees soft, push hips back as much as possible. Then usually, and also, I will say another thing is I probably see people try to force their chest up too much or get too much thoracic extension. That's what I see, because obviously if you can maintain like a neutral spine and actually depressing down on your scapula to engage your lats, you can probably lock into a better position and you can actually brace better, and you probably notice that your ability to hinge will be a lot better too. And also you won't feel those folding again, because it's like the weight is pulling you down, but if you like get that massive extension through the top, at some point you're gonna start fold before your hips even move. Does it make sense?
Yeah, so you're saying like, would you still look forward? Or do you
I would say, I mean, this is how I cue clients anyway. It doesn't matter whatever point that you feel more comfortable, just try not to like purposely, because obviously chest up is kind of like the cue that we learned, with squats and deadlift. But I found that most of the time for people, forcing their chest up will end up like extending your thoracic spine too much. Then for most people, you probably find it really hard to actually squat down to depth, or like when you're lifting or pulling heavy weights, it's actually really hard to then lock into that position. So by just not worry about forcing your chest up, bracing as hard as you can, pushing against the belt, or if you're not pushing against the belt, just, pressing down, even like slightly pull your rib cage down a little bit. And then, move your hips as far back as you can. I think you'll notice that you probably see a lot less folding happening.
But just encouraging a little bit more of that knee bend as well. Like you said, depends on the situation, but because I think, I know I've had issues in the past with that, and then I obviously followed a lot of people, and you learn yourself as a coach as well. So you know what I mean? Like you start to, with clients, it's frustratingly enough, sometimes with clients, it's easier because you can look at them and you can fix things. But when it's yourself, sometimes you just have days where you're like, how do I teach this? I can't even get it myself. It can be frustrating, but no, that's a good, I agree with a lot of those cues. It's big. The look forward thing or chest up is massive. Yeah. And it's hard because there is people out there that are very experienced and maybe stronger than me and they will use it as a cue, and there's nothing wrong with that because it probably works for people as well. But for me personally, maybe it's just the way I'm built. But if I do try to look up, exactly what you've just said is what happens for me. I almost find that I just kind of let my eyes follow my body. Yeah. And that's a lot more comfortable. Yeah. So I guess, for me now, I'm expecting that when I'm in the gym now, I'm going to RDL 200 from all that advice.
Try that.
Yeah. You've given me that advice, so I'm going to do it now.